Okay, so let's do like a quick disclaimer.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, that's like super awkward. The disclaimer is, so I am Lori Wilson. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and this is
Al Anslone, licensed marriage and family therapist.
So the disclaimer is going to be that anything, that you hear on here, or you're offended by, please let us know or let somebody else know.
Let me know.
But this also doesn't, take the place of therapy. And so if you are struggling with something, depression, anxiety, anything like that, any mood disorder, anything like that, you need to seek help from a therapist. This is just going to be a podcast where we talk about different topics. Mm-hmm. And today's topic is celebrities.
Yay.
And what was the guy's name? So the guy at
it was a Bristol Coffee Bean.
Yes.
I just did a general poll, which is just me talking to one person and asking them a question.
A poll I made up just 5 minutes ago.
I feel like it's peer reviewed because she was there. And he said that he's a poli-sci major, which explains why he's working at a coffee shop. Sorry, guys. But he also said that he's fascinated by the idea of why pop culture has become culture and why we find it so interesting to both hate celebrities and love celebrities. And I feel like that's a perfect kind of piggyback onto what we were going to do, which is essentially, I don't know, exploring celebrities and their natural habitat.
Yeah, in their natural habitat, yeah.
On the magazine.
So I have a... I guess, I wouldn't call it an obsession, but I definitely have a desire and a drive to pick up celebrity gossip magazines. And I think part of the reason that I do that is like when reality TV came, which was in the 90s, I think it started with The Real World.
Cops.
Oh, Cops. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. Oh, I think it's like, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but like a good way to decompress. So we spend, all day long really like...
It's a fishbowl.
Yeah, taking in a lot of information. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of my go-to for just decompressing, which, my husband will walk in and I'm watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians and he walks right back out again. So...
Well, I wonder why, and that's another piece of information, is I wonder why men don't feel as, I guess maybe the word celebrated or encouraged or supported in exploring that stuff. Because I feel like in the Kardashians, the men are like really important.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the Jenner thing, and when Bruce became Caitlyn, it was a focus, but still Khloe and Kim become and then what was
well, and Scott, so Kourtney's ex, and he's actually been, I actually am very impressed. So they went through like they have 3 kids, mm-hmm. So they went through where they had the breakup. Married, right? They did never get married, no. But they broke up, and he had a drinking problem. Mm-hmm. Like he was drinking, he was not being attentive to his kids. But right now, like in the season that they're in now, he's just being, a rock star with the kids. And he talks about how he had kids young and how now that he is grown up, he's more present with them and able to do that. They actually just went to Bali and had a reading of where they told... whoever was doing the reading told Kourtney and Scott that they were soulmates, whatever that meant. Not that necessarily meant they needed to get married.
Soulmates.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on soulmates?
Having gotten married 6 months ago, mm-hmm. I think I was like, oh, I met my soulmate. And then I got married, and then I was like, no.
No such thing as soulmates.
Marriage is hard.
Yeah, it is. It's hard work.
What are your thoughts on soulmates?
I think I don't like the idea of having one soulmate. I like the idea of having many, and I don't think it's necessarily about being in love. I feel like there are people put in our lives to teach us stuff that improves our soul, and maybe that's how a soulmate starts. I don't know, people who are introduced, like you and I met, and mm-hmm. now we're doing this, and that makes sense. Is it soulmate, or is it just this kind of grand design thing? I don't know.
Sure. I love that. I love that idea, because that's why I'll say, like, you're my spirit animal, because you'll, like, say something that's very direct, and I am not, that's not very typical for me, so when I'm in that kind of a mood to say something, which I think is a very similar thing.
I always try, when I'm trying to be graceful and kind, I'm like, what would Lori do? And when you're trying to be a dick, you're like, what else?
Yes. Oh, 100%. Well, maybe today, because we, started with the Kardashians, maybe let's go with what was talked about in here. So, one of the things that I think I actually texted you about earlier in the week was something with Kanye. So in the series, Kanye actually
is Kanye
this season,
a Kardashian or is Kim a West?
That's funny. I would say, if you ask me about Scott, I would say Scott is a Kardashian because he has a great relationship. He's kind of like the man, that like stable man in their lives.
That's ironic. Because I only saw, I think, the first and second season when he was just a shit show.
Yeah.
And I was like, that guy's a jerk and he's abusive. Yeah. So I'm glad that he's turned it around.
No, I'm extremely impressed at his turnaround. And I feel like he's, anybody who can, put on their big boy pants and be there for their children and change that. Not because I'm changing because I'm having children. Yes. I think he really is deciding to change because
it's the right thing to do because his kids need him to be a good man.
And Kanye's actually not in it very often. He'll show up here and there.
I wonder whose choice that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would say Chris.
Maybe, right. Maybe because she did make a comment a couple weeks ago about, and clearly I watch the show every week.
I'm so glad you're keeping me up. I'm like, oh, catch me up.
And it's funny because I do talk to a lot of people about them. They're like, oh, they're not famous for anything. But honestly, I genuinely feel like, whether it's influence of their mom or anything like that, they are very savvy business people.
Totally.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, they're famous.
That is. And they do a great job with it.
And the fact that they've done nothing and they're famous for their business management, honestly.
Yes.
I mean, shit.
Which is doing something. If someone was like, oh, you're famous for nothing.
Yeah. Well, then how do you know me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't be jealous.
So there was I'll have to find it. There was a section in here where Kanye was talking about being a pastor or a preacher or something, which, and you know me that I'm normally like very politically correct and just want to be kind to everyone because I think that that's just a good way to be, like how Ellen is and how, I just think it's
loving. Yeah.
Loving. It's good. But I was a little nervous when I read this because I do think that, and mental health, obviously we are versed in it.
And let's first, I want to say out loud that I think 100% Kanye has been struggling with bipolar 1. And as a clinician, I have to report that bipolar 1 is a very scary disease or an illness. I don't know how politically correct we're supposed to talk about it now. And it's, there's a lot of medication, there's a lot of therapy, and there's a lot of stuff to help. And I think that he has really struggled with being famous with a really intense mental health issue. And he was kind of upfront about taking medication and stuff like that at first.
Do you remember when that was? Because I don't remember.
It was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, where I think it was Kim who said, he's taking medication and he stopped taking his medication because he's not as inspired, which I totally relate to. Full disclosure, I've been struggling with mental illness for most of my life, and if I don't take my medication, then all hell breaks loose. So I couldn't imagine being surrounded by people who can't tell me the truth, who quote unquote worship the ground I walk on, and then to have all these insane manic fantasies about what your life should be like when it's basically based in the part of your brain that's not making any sense. So that's scary to me, but it also sounds exactly like those big church preachers. Yeah. That feels insane to me too. The Tammy Faye's and the Jim Bakkers and stuff like that. Yes. That's insane with their purple hair. Have you seen the lady with the purple hair?
I haven't. Oh. But that's kind of what, and I don't know where this came from, but it says that praise Jesus. Sorry.
Finally a church I can relate to.
So it just says preaching to the choir. It says Kanye wants his Sunday gospel to gain a global following. And so this is him. And I think that church and religion is a tough thing anyways, because as we see it, it's like we were talking about the Catholic Church, and as we see it, or even when you talk about Jim Jones and like all these people, it's like the commonality that religion has with cults or anything like that is really
the fear-based control.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like religion originally was for, is to kind of keep everybody in line. But when you have somebody who's completely out of line and quote unquote insane and is telling me how to live my life, I just don't. I think he's in it for the tax reasons. I don't think he really wants to be a minister. Or a reverend or whatever he thinks. I think he wants a channel, much like how Donald Trump likes it, just to hear himself talk, and which is great and fine. But people take this stuff really seriously.
Sure.
I mean, doesn't have a reality show. That's fine. Keep your reality show. You don't have to have a channel where we have to listen to you. I don't know.
Well, and a global following, right? Like you can have that with a reality television show.
Have that with Instagram and with Twitter, and why?
Yeah.
Why even angle this? That just
didn't you just mention Tommy Baker?
Yeah, Tammy Baker.
Oh, Tammy Baker. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Kanye says.
Of course he
she
does.
could be a modern day. Yeah, Tammy Baker.
Which is she kind of is.
Wait, so who is Tammy Baker?
Tammy Baker, the original. Okay, so this was like an 80s thing, and I'm going to go off the top of my head, since I was an 80s child, that Tammy and Jim Baker were kind of like the Calvary Chapel, that, what is the Christian channel, the Majesty Network is right off the 405, that big castle off the 405.
Okay.
It is the Trinity Network.
Okay.
So they were, I believe, the first, televangelists. And he was caught, from what I remember, and again, off the top of my head, embezzling tons of money and spending it all on his insane wife, which you've probably seen her because she has those big chunky eyelashes, and you've seen them at the pulpit, and she's crying, and she's got mascara streaming down her face.
I'm going to look her up real quick because I gotta totally see who she is.
And they got in big trouble. And I remember, I don't know if they served any time. Exactly.
Okay.
Served any time or whatever, but it was a huge scandal. And he was, Jim Baker was on TV, tears and sweat running down his face, begging for forgiveness. And that's what the picture that I remember from my childhood. But they got in big trouble because he got out of control with his ego or his money or whatever.
Sure.
Typical.
And I think that's what it says, the how do you say that?
Televangelist.
I think it is easy when you're given, just as we're seeing with Trump, and all the political stuff aside, if we just look at it from like a mental health and a personality point of view, it is scary to watch the tweeting and all that stuff. And I think what happens when you get that big platform, or when you get, I think this would be for anybody. Yes. You get all this money all of a sudden, right? It's like when people win the lottery and then they're poor. Yeah. It's so much at once, I think, for anybody, that you have to really have a good community of people around you to look at you and say, hey, you're acting like an asshole.
Cut it off. This is out of control. Like, what you're saying is not
And if you're
good.
just firing all those people that are calling you an asshole, like, that's like, as a therapist, you have, there are people who, and it's really important that you have a therapist who you trust and you feel like you can talk to, but there are going to be times when you are going to be offended by your therapist.
If you're growing.
And
if you have a therapist that'll actually tell you the truth, like, listen.
Yeah. Or if you can talk it out, like if there is something that's bothering you and you're able to talk about it with your therapist, and it's this appropriate, safe environment where you can do that. Yes. Because whether your therapist is firing you or you're firing them, it's the same thing as in that community. If somebody tells you, hey, what you're doing isn't appropriate, or the way you're acting, and then you're like, well, then you're done.
Well, I know. I don't want to hear this from you. I want to find somebody who will tell me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
That's the Kardashian thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'll just block the people that don't tell me the good things, and I will invite the people who will, join my conga line of whatever. Mm-hmm. That's
why I love, Pink was actually on Ellen the other day, and she was talking about how she got, which I think is ridiculous. She's awesome. She got shamed because there was a pelican who had flew into their pool area on their farm, and her 2-year-old, I think, was not wearing a diaper. Okay, you're on your private property, not wearing a diaper. She was shamed because her baby was running around naked on her own property. Yeah. That's incredible to me. Yeah. Who? People tweeting about, or Instagram. I don't know what message it was on. I was just listening to her retelling the story. And it's who? It's just so interesting about how people want to, like, if you're the person who's scrolling through Instagram and like going and shaming people, like that's a good indication that you
probably should go to therapy.
You probably should go to therapy. Yeah. And we were talking about Kanye and wanting to bring his Sunday service to television after he live streamed his gospel-inspired performance at Coachella on Easter Sunday. So, yeah.
Is that when God told him he should be a televangelist?
When did God tell you? So my question, so quick, I'm going to ask a question to Elle, and the question is going to be, if you were, I guess, like, if you were treating Kanye, or if you were his therapist and he came in to see you and was, had been seeing you for time and was like, hey, this is what I want to do. I think I want to start doing this. And knowing what you kind of have said. So let's say bipolar 1 in a manic phase. What would you do with that? And how would you assist him in proceeding to make, a good decision?
Good, rational decision. I don't think, as a ethical therapist, that treating a client, a patient who is severely mentally ill and is completely unmedicated, I don't know if I would necessarily support their ideas, but I would encourage and explore kind of the thoughts on it. Because if I heard, I was, at a concert and I started singing, and while I was singing, the Lord was talking to me and was telling me that my purpose in life is to be a TV minister, reverend. That would be fascinating. Let's talk about that. Like, how did you receive this message that this is what you wanted to do? How religious are you? Because I've never really understood Kanye to be a religious person, but what I do understand is that people with mania or schizophrenia become hyper-religious. So is it Kanye that's religious, or is it the mental illness that's religious? Is this something that everybody's too fearful to tell him no about? Like, listen, you have enough. Like, your universe is truly abundant. How can we use your powers for good instead of focusing all of our energy on the stuff you say? Like, why don't we focus some energy on stuff that you could do? Do you want to be a minister for the notoriety? Do you want to be a minister because the golden ticket to heaven? Or do you truly believe you're going to change the world with this new interpretation of whatever text? I don't know if you've listened to his music, but it doesn't feel very gospel or spiritual. I mean, and I like Kanye. I like his music. I think he's interesting. I actually didn't
hear the Coachella performance, so I'm not sure. But I think I like the idea of exploring something with somebody, and I think that's really important. And I think that's part of what therapy is exploring why we're doing something. Because it does seem like when you have, and if it's mania, obviously, like, that's a conversation that needs to be had. Not that conversation is going to be easy. Like, I think getting someone who has bipolar to recognize that is really what's going on.
And it's
I
not
think
bad or good.
Hard.
It just is.
It just is.
And yes, you don't have to sleep.
Yeah.
Yes, you're super creative. And I love that. I think that's incredible. Many, really talented artists are the most productive when they're manic. But it's after the mania.
Sure.
I mean, do we want a reverend who, after the mania, plunges into a deep, dark depression? I mean, that feels like Jim Jones to me. Like, I'm going to bring all you motherfuckers with me. Sure. I'm sad. I'm upset. My brain is broken. God is talking to me. And that's super scary.
Yeah.
But of course, I would never tell a client, like, yo, you might be a mess and you might kill 1,000 people. You know what I mean? Sure. But the potential for mental illness to turn into something dark is just as high as the, I can make 45 paintings in one night. Yeah. Okay.
But and that's important to remember, those mood shifts of this isn't going to stay this way. There is going to be a downturn. And what is that going to look like when that happens?
Who's going down with you? Is it your family, or is it the channel that you've created? Is it your congregation now that you have?
Yeah.
I mean, we see him kind of burst into the spotlight, and he becomes this otherworldly alien creature where people are like, oh, he's so weird. Like, let's listen to him. Like, he's so creative. He's so fascinating. He's so weird. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to buy his book.
Sure.
Yeah, let's look at him. Let's listen to him, his music. Let's let him be the wild creature that he is. But I don't want to sign up for his retreat.
Well, that would be like, because I mean, and I know Taylor Swift writes all her own songs and all that, but that would be like, I watched was it the Billboard Music Awards, and her performance with Panic at the Disco, and it was awesome. But that'd be like her all of a sudden again being like, I think I'm gonna be
a nun.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I'm going to preach to people. I think I'm going to, it's like, no, your platform is music. That's right. This global following for Kanye is his music. And what can I say in those songs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of kind of shifting to this.
Scripture. I don't want to quote the book of Kanye. I'm not interested. We have enough. This society has enough guru. We have enough yogis. We have enough, tastemakers. And we have enough people to pay attention to. Like, just chill. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you can't tell
social influencers.
Yeah. That doesn't even mean anything, It's just like, you have enough, dude. Chill out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's, the thing about life and style in these gossip magazines is there are so many topics to talk about.
True that.
But if you guys have anything that you would like us to talk about, just go ahead and, message at the bottom of this video. You can find us on Instagram at Centered Counseling. That's CNTRD. You can also DM us there. So we would just like to know what you guys would like to talk about. And we will see you here weekly where we will try to filter some of what we say.
No guarantees on this side of the couch.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Bye, guys.
Bye.